Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Mailbox Sundays with your hosts, Dr. Terry Jackson, Life Coach Tem T, and Pastor Kenny Smith.
Source Nation, welcome back to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with me, your host, Life Purpose Coach Tem T. So, as I stated earlier, special guest tonight is an author, she's a business consultant, she's an emotional intelligence coach, Aleasa M. Word. And while she's been mic'd up, I just wanted to share something from her website to really just give you some perspective on what she actually offers to the community as a whole. She says, in addition to life and leadership coaching services, she offers coaching, group coaching parties, motivational speaking, and various workshops tailored to your needs. Consulting services support businesses and communities in need of team building, diversity and inclusion strategies, restorative justice, community healing, and conflict management. When you're stuck, she's there to help you navigate in a way that makes sense for you. So definitely a lot to offer and so meaningful on so many levels for those that are trying to make better changes and better decisions in their life. I do believe our special guest is mic'd and ready to go. And Lisa, are you here? Welcome to Renaissance Relationship Therapy. How you doing?
I am doing well, Tem T. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Oh, it is absolutely my pleasure. We've been trying to get you on here for some time. And I know, you do so many speaking engagements and interviews everywhere else. So we're very lucky to have you. And I know some of our listeners are very familiar with you, but of course this is the first time I've spoken to you. So for the sake of those who might be hearing you for the first time also, please let them know what you do and why you do it.
Well, as you mentioned in the intro, I am an emotional intelligence coach. People typically think about emotions as just the way that you feel, not understanding that your own personal emotional intelligence is really the dictator behind how you make decisions based on how you are at that moment, whether or not you are self-aware of where you are in the moment, as well as where other people are in the moment. And that's really at the crux of how we as people deal with each person. I believe in the ideology behind Compassion and Compassion International. I do a lot of work with them. And, everything that we do, every act that we take, every behavior, there is a feeling or a need behind it. And if we're not addressing those feelings or those needs, no matter what it is in our lives, it's not going to go the way that we predicted it would go. So if we're able to tap into our emotional intelligence and be mindful, then we can make better decisions, better choices, and ultimately have more optimal success in every area of our life. And that's really what we all want in the end. I do a lot, with coaching and consulting and speaking, writing, actually working on a couple more books right now. But a lot of my focus really is on men and boys. I do things with women too, but with men and boys, there are a lot of things that are happening out there for women and for girls and programs and those sorts of things. And it's already assumed all the time that men are okay, boys are okay, and that's really not always the case. And having two boys of my own, in addition to my daughter, I see a lot of things, I feel a lot of things, knowing a lot of men who didn't really have that male role model or even a great female role model in their life, and knowing that those things actually do kind of eat away at the way that we make our decisions, and it impacts relationships significantly. So I have most of my male clients are really talking to me about relationships, believe it or not.
Okay, and so, and it's, of course, talking about this topic is something that, I really felt people don't highlight enough, what's wrong with the transition from boys to men. And, your work on the Good Men Project, is something that I've, like I said, wanted to talk to you about for a while. And really, from your insight on the work on the Good Men Project, and also just your insight from your own life, you spoke about some of the issues, lack of role models, just emotional issues that haven't been dealt with. Are there any other common issues that are plaguing men today that you see over and over again that some men out there listening to right now may not even be aware of, but it needs to be brought to their attention that, look, if you're feeling this way, you may want to talk to someone about it? Anything that comes to mind?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest plagues that really impacts men, and especially men of color, is fear. And let me finish that before anybody gets upset. And when I say fear, it's fear of, not being, I'm not saying that, men are afraid I'm not a man, I'm not enough. What people are afraid of is what they don't know how to do, what they can't accomplish, what society expects of them. And a lot of times the expectations that society has are so far-fetched and so unrealistic that if you really think about it, no one could actually measure up to those expectations, including the people who are putting them forth for men in the first place.
Wow.
And that creates such a subset of fear in men on a regular basis. And, men in general, they have a lot of responsibility, a lot of weight on their shoulders. Women, we want them to be very sensitive and be, there and attuned to our needs, and that's great. But then you also want this man who's a rock and who's solid and who doesn't buckle easily. And it's, women are pretty flexible in that sometimes we can be on and off like a light switch, and typically in my experience, men just don't work that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when you have that, there is a fear. You've got this fear that this woman you love is not going to want to stay in your life. You've got this fear of rejection. I mean, from boys all the way up to adults. How many times is a male rejected by female? And if they're rejected by their mother, then they're going to have that fear of rejection from females the rest of their lives. So fear causes so many different things for people. Women tend to gather in groups and have a bigger support system, a wider net that we can kind of bring people in and to help us to deal with those things. But men are expected to just suck it all up, not have any feelings, and keep it moving. And how fair is that? And even in today's world with, a lot of men that are more in tune to some of that, the majority of people still have that stereotypical feeling of the alpha male who's never supposed to feel anything, who's never supposed to hurt, who's never supposed to be afraid, who's always supposed to know all the answers. And that really causes a lot of issues with people from a self-confidence, self-esteem perspective, and they don't want to be vulnerable with other people. I know that there are a lot of male coaches out there, and I think it's great, and male coaches do a lot of really great work. But there's a piece of men that there's just that little bit of vulnerability that a man is not going to go to a man and say, yo, man, I'm feeling afraid. Because he
you're right.
feel that,
yeah.
He's gonna. You can't go to another man and say that, but you can go to a woman and you can say that. You can have that conversation and not worry about being judged by someone who's not in your immediate circle. And I think that we are growing a culture of fear in people in general, but especially in our boys. And the more and more things you see on television, everything from cases with police brutality to males being on sex offender lists because a 19-year-old had intercourse with a girl who was 16, and she said she was 17 or 16 or whatever, and she's actually 14, but she looked like she's 25, and he's on the registry for 25 years. There's so many different things that are coming at our males, and once you get stigmatized as being a certain way, how do you come out of that? How do you say to somebody, I'm afraid I'm not going to succeed. I'm afraid this is not going to work. I'm afraid that somebody's going to see me for who I really am on the inside, and I don't know what to do about that. Who do they go to?
Wow.
And it's just unfair that we don't have a place for men to go to that's a safe space.
Now, you will talk about, some men will acknowledge some of these concerns, and we'll talk about, how culturally and socially that they never had a good hand to deal with in the first place, and feel that that's responsible for a lot of their situation. But then, of course, you do get some men, of course, who can be held accountable for and responsible for some of their failings. Typically, what kind of cases do you come across like that it's like, okay, this is on you now. I've tried to back you up, I tried to explain, but you messing up your life. You got to take the rap for this one.
Well, we have to be accountable for our actions, right, no matter what our actions are. And we have to be accountable for being honest with ourselves, male or female. We have to be honest with ourselves. And I think that's where we fall short more often than not, and that falls across the board for both women and men. But when a man grows up in a society that says that if you show emotion or you admit that you didn't do something right, that somehow you're weak, that same society that continuously spouts off only the strong will survive. When you have men that are raised in a society where males are not supposed to have fears, where they're not supposed to ever admit that they're weak, they're not supposed to admit they don't know how to do something, then you create a situation where they don't do that. So we're not honest with ourselves. Women sometimes are not honest with ourselves about who we really are, what we've really done. And it's okay to be honest with ourselves. We lack the ability to forgive ourselves, but yet we expect others to forgive us. So the accountability issue really comes on you and your behaviors, but then not beating yourself up to the point that you can't move forward past that. So if you were in a relationship, say, for instance, with, a woman and you cheated on that woman, then your accountability is you need to step up and take responsibility for what you did if your agreement in that relationship was that the two of you would be faithful to one another. But at that point, you take an accountability for it, but what's your next step? And that's the piece that's missing. Because even when people sometimes take accountability for what they've done, they don't know what the next step is. So what we do is we tend to fall right back into that trap of what we know to be comfortable. And what we're not doing sometimes as parents, and I can say that even myself, my oldest son is 25, first child, that's your trial run. And, you do the best you can, But,
right.
number two and three usually get a little bit more. But,
yes.
With that, we have to do a better job as a people preparing our children for what life is and also for what life is not. We sometimes give people this misconception that we are perfect and that they ought to be perfect too. So then they aspire to be this perfect person that does not exist. And then because of that, we refuse to take accountability for our imperfections. So, if you've got a dad who's not been involved with their children, take responsibility, take accountability for that. You did that. I don't care what she did. I don't care what she said. There's a court system that you can work with, and you can do something about that. It may not be the ideal situation, but you can do something about that. So we're a blaming nation. We blame all the time. I live in Atlanta, and every corner you see a billboard for these personal injury lawyers.
Yeah,
you hear them on the radio. They even have rap songs, right, for these personal injury lawyers because no matter what the accident is, somehow somebody else is to blame. And we live in a blaming society. No, nothing is ever anyone's fault. So when we learn how to take accountability for those things that we have done, but also from that point learn how to transition from I accept responsibility to now I'm going to do something different. That's when some things will change for people. And it starts with parents. We've got to do it with our boys. We've got to do it with our girls. Because if we don't,
absolutely.
Then what happens? You have all these adults that have all these issues where they're stuck and they can't get out of their own way.
Now, like you said earlier, a lot of these issues, you may grow up with them and they never really become, you may not see them as an issue, even though they've probably been affecting every decision that you've made, career decisions, housing decisions, personal lifestyle decisions. But you may see that any impact they have on your life as, well, stuff happens, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But you don't realize how badly any emotional or personal imbalance affects your life until you're in a relationship. Then it all comes out. So for a man that starts realizing, okay, I've been in this relationship and it was cool for the first 6 months, but now we're arguing all the time. What am I doing wrong? She never seems to be happy. What kind of advice would you give for a man who's going through this, realizing, okay, this is not turning out the way I thought it was going to be? And what also kind of advice would you give for a woman who now is coming across this man and realizing, oh my goodness, he's got some unresolved issues. What do I do? What's the advice for both of them?
Well, we tend, again, to set unrealistic expectations. We as a people, we don't want to be alone. People want to be with somebody. Even the person who's the most confident, and says, oh, I love being alone. Oh, I enjoy being alone. Humans are built for companionship. We just are. Well, one of the concerns that we have on a regular basis is that we just don't give ourselves enough time in between relationships in order to have the next one. We don't give ourselves enough time to heal. Even if nobody just outwardly hurt you, you still have to heal, because I believe that relationships are a spiritual journey. So when you have that spiritual journey and you make that spiritual journey together and you act as one unit, when the unit separates, then the spirit is wounded, regardless of the reasons for the separation. So if you take your wounded spirit to somebody else who's not wounded, then that's still going to be contagious. Or if that person also was wounded, then you've got two wounded spirits acting as one. How does that work? It really doesn't. So the first thing that we have to think about is, are you really ready for a relationship in the first place? That's the question you have to ask yourself. So now you're in the middle of something, and it's like, what's happening? What do I do? Reevaluate. First of all, pause, relax, pause. Take a moment to take the emotion out of it. Take some time for yourself and look at not just the pros and the cons of the relationship, but the pros and cons of you and where you are in your life. What's happening with you? Are you having financial issues that you haven't shared with your partner that's creating the issues that you have that you think it's something else, but it's really your financial problems that are stressing you out? Is it a problem with a family member that you have, a problem at your job, something with your friends, your ex, your children, your health? What is it? Is there something else behind that gives you this perception that there is something wrong in your relationship? And once you've analyzed that, you can then get your partner really, there's some things that could be going on there too. We tend to look at the surface behaviors instead of looking at the feelings or the need behind it. You have an argument with somebody. Somebody says something horrible to you. So you get caught up in the moment. And instead of, and it's very difficult to kind of take that moment and pause during the middle of an argument. But if you were to sit back and think, what my response was in the argument was X, Y, Z. What was I feeling at that moment, and what did I really need from my partner? And the same question comes across when you have to ask yourself, what was your partner feeling at that moment, and what did they need from you? What were you not providing for them, so what were they not providing for you? Because sometimes fixing a relationship problem is just as simple as that. Now, there are other times when you're just mismatched, and you got with somebody at a time in your life where you were wounded, and now that wound has scabbed over, you don't need that person anymore. So how do you fix it? Because now you've created a mess. You got to be honest.
Yes.
You're going to have to rip the Band-Aid off, and guess what? It's going to hurt like I don't know what, but I'd rather it hurt now than to gush and hemorrhage later.
Exactly. Oh, my goodness. Words of wisdom, Source Nation. Aleasa M. Word is in the house, and it's just amazing. Simplistic information, and yes, some of it you may have heard before in a lot of the shows, but there is, as she was saying, there's a spiritual subtext to relationships. Relationships are a spiritual journey, and unfortunately, a lot of us don't see it that way. But if you're just tuning in, once again, you are listening to Renaissance Relationship Therapy. I'm your host, Tem Ti Aleasa. We have the wonderful Coach Aleasa Word, and we are discussing for boys to men what could go wrong. Phone lines are now open, so feel free to call in, everyone. If you have questions or you'd like to comment concerning the topic or speak to our wonderful guest, the call-in number is 619-924-0933. Press option 1 to speak. So, Aleasa, we always hear the saying, well, I've always heard it, men don't create women, women create men. Do you think that, that there really is a natural advantage that a woman has in working with men in order to get results? And should that advantage really be, does that give women almost like a greater responsibility when it comes to relationships because of their, the intuition that they have over men?
Well, as far as relationship and who has a responsibility, the responsibility actually is on each of us. It's not just one person or the other, and sometimes people want to think about relationship from the perspective of 50-50. It might be 60-40 today, 40-60 tomorrow, so it just depends on where you are in your biorhythm of the relationship. But the journey, again, like I said before, is spiritual, and people, when they think spiritually, they go, here she goes, some religious fanatic, and that's not even the case. You have a spirit regardless of whether you believe in a religion or not. Whether or not you believe in a deity is up to you. But the spirit of yourself and who you are and what you feel, that's where your connection is with the other person. And as far as women are concerned, we do have a gift, of that intuition, but not everybody taps into that gift. And as far as us making men, so to making a man is being the mother and being that portal to which he came in life. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that men are made from a host of things. You know, their experiences in their life, their parents, whether their parents are there or their parents are absent. But as far as women themselves, women do have a unique advantage in that sometimes we have the ability to give a man a place of comfort and a place where he feels it's a safe space to be himself. And then he sometimes can be on his grind a little bit harder than he would be by himself because he feels more like he has a purpose that's even more important because now not only is he taking care of himself, but he's looking out for his partner. But, you know, for some women, they do have the mindset of, you know, I made you. I'm the one who, you know, supported you and did this for you and did that for you. And you can support somebody all day long, but if they're not willing to do the work, you don't have to do anything but make a mess anyway.
Right,
so,
right.
You know, I mean, that's what it really comes down to. And then the confident person, even if they feel that way, you don't have to say it because it comes across in your actions and the way that you are throughout the relationship. And if what you are is the support for the relationship, and if you are 90% of the relationship, that's not a relationship. That's a dictatorship.
Gotcha.
And why would you want to? Why would you want to be in a monopoly and monopolize your man? Why would you want to do that? And why would you want him to monopolize you? That wouldn't even make any sense. You might as well be by yourself and make your own choices and make your own decisions. And the same thing for a man. Why would you want to monopolize a woman? For what? Because a lot of times people get very confused with, you know, people who want to mix up religion, mix up spirituality, mix all this stuff in. But, you know, I hear people say things like they use the word submission. Well, you know, a woman's supposed to submit to her man. Well, where did you get that from? Did you hear that from somebody, or do you believe that from a religious perspective? But then if you believe it from a religious perspective, then you got to grab the other piece that goes with it. Because, see, if you expect her to submit to you, then you need to submit to Christ, right? But if you don't feel that that's right, and if you don't even believe in God, then what are you talking about submission for? What does that mean?
Right.
So we tend to pick and choose, right?
Yes.
What we feel is relevant for us at that time. And the thing is about relationships in general, relationships are a mirror. They're such a mirror. And there are some people who bring out the best in that mirror and some people who bring out the worst. You can be a great person, but be horrible with a certain person you're involved with. But then be great for the next relationship.
Right. Wow, so that's sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, so it really at the end of the day, it comes down to you, who you are, what you bring to the table, and your ability to be able to commit to being a good partner. Everybody wants a partner. Well, you need to be a partner before you can get a partner.
That's true talk. That is true talk. And, you know, being a good partner, you know, you get, you know, a lot of men that will say, well, I'm a good man. You know, why can't I? There's no good woman out there for me. You know, what do you think generally makes a good man? What do men need to be looking at if they say, you know, if women are saying there's no good men, what do men need to check about themselves to make sure that, look, I want to be that good guy? What do they need to do?
Well, you know, I use a lot of comparatives and a lot of analogies when I talk about things. When you meet somebody who's rich, right, a person who's rich, who's been used to having money, who's done things for years, they don't have to brag about what they have. Oftentimes, they walk around and they might even be in secondhand clothes, right? But they got big boats, big houses, but they don't brag about it. They don't have to tell you anything that they are doing to let you know how important they are. But then you find somebody else who stumbled upon some money, and they're constantly telling you how good they are, how much they have, what they're doing. That's a person who has a self-confidence issue. So the same thing comes down to with I'm a good man, I'm a good woman. If I have to tell you that I'm a good woman, either one, you're not on the level where you're paying attention to the fact that I am, or two, I'm covering up something that really means I'm not the good woman I'm telling you that I am. And that's the same thing when it comes to men. If he's a good man, he doesn't have to tell you that he's a good man. If you're a good man, you're always striving to be a better man. And in that, you will find that woman that you are looking for. Stop waiting for her to find you. You find her. But you find her by being the best man that you can be within yourself, within your capacity to be such. And you don't have to tell people, well, I'm a good man. if you're a good man, it will be evident from the moment you walk your good self into a room. People will know that's a good man right there.
Wow.
Your presence will speak for you.
I concur. I absolutely concur. You know, trying to be the best as a man, trying to self-actualize, trying to do, you know, everything right. Some males, some men are more at risk than others because of their situation, where they grow up, or their family situation. Again, typically with your work in the project, in the Good Men Project, and your own personal experience, is there a typical type of male that is more at risk of having dysfunctional tendencies?
Well, studies will tell you about dysfunction being in single-parent homes. They will bring up the fact that there are so many children that grow up in single-parent homes that have dysfunction in one way or another. Either they're lagging behind academically, or they lag behind in their emotional intelligence, or there's something where they need more attention. They end up in the criminal justice system, or they're more susceptible to addictions or behavior issues and things of that nature, or mental health problems. But with that, although that is true statistically, the fact that we are such a changing and evolving nation, you see those things spilling over into other families too, because there are families that have two parents in the home, but they're not really two parents in the home. Their parent, you'll have the presence of two parents, but one parent is totally disengaged, which has the same impact as it would if that parent were not there. Additionally, one area that we're not addressing when it comes to this is, you know, there's a lot of stuff out here about fatherlessness, and we got to get fathers up to, speed, and they've got to do this, and dad's got to do this, and on and on. But what about the homes now, because we're dealing with the LGBTQ community? How do you deal with that when you have two women in the home? Do you then berate them and say that they're horrible people because there's fatherlessness there? Do you then say that their children at more of a high risk? I think that one of the things that we really need to look at when we're thinking about who is or is not at risk is looking at the parents themselves. Because if you have two fully functioning parents in the home, but at the same time they're arguing like cats and dogs in front of the kids all the time, there's financial issues, they're not taking care of their medical needs, that child's just as much at risk or more as the one who's in the hood, who's like, you know what, I'm not going to be here forever, I'm about to be out. And they all of a sudden get their grades together and they go to college and they change their life. So I think the focus needs to be more on, you know, the at-risk person is the one who does not have the support system in place to help them learn how to be self-sufficient and resilient. That's the person who's the most at risk, because resiliency is extremely important, as well as emotional flexibility and being competent with conflict resolution and diverse solution strategies in your own mind. And as a parent, that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to teach your children, how to be flexible and how to be resilient. So if that child doesn't have a support system, I don't care where he comes from, he's at risk.
So, okay, so that right there, if you could actually write that down or draw that on a painting, I would frame that and put that on my wall. I love those words, you know, resiliency, you know, conflict resolution. It's amazing how many people are so rigid in their ways and really don't know how to think their way out of a paper bag when things don't go the way they want them to, and then they start blaming everybody else. They never ask the why and really get to the root of what is going on. So, you know, we know the influence that parents can have on children. What about as an adult, being in proactive mode now? What advice would you give to any female who is looking to come into contact with a guy? She's looking for a guy. What is the best way that she can approach it now to get the best out of that man, or to understand him, so that she can give herself, I don't know, the space and time, I guess, to learn him properly, or to look out for certain things, or to communicate in a way that gets the best out of him? What advice would you give to any women out there?
One of the things that we do as women is, you know, men tend to be, not all, men tend to be fixers and women tend to be nurturers, right? So we want to be able to nurture and encourage people and groom and kind of move things here and there and kind of make things what they should be as opposed to what they are. And as women, we have to learn about acceptance. Accept people for who, not only who they are at that moment, but where they are in their personal journey. But also being able to accept yourself for who you are and where you are. We see all of these movies that tell us about this prince who's going to take us and sweep us off of our feet. As little girls, that has a lasting impact on the way that we think and our perceptions about the responsibility of a man in our lives. So when we look at men, we tend to think, well, a man's supposed to provide, and if he cannot provide, then he becomes inadequate in our minds. And how does that translate to our sons? If this man is not providing, then he's inadequate. So he grows up believing I'm inadequate because I can't provide. So a person who already thinks that they're at a disadvantage is not going to have the opportunity to work at the full capacity of who they could be because they already have that mindset going that I'm inadequate. Accept people for where they are and who they are. And if that person is not for you, that's okay. Because we have a tendency to try to make that square fit into that round hole. It's not going to fit. It's just not going to fit. And then with women, we have, and not all of you ladies, but we tend to have a problem with time. Well, I've spent 2 years with this person, and I'm not going to waste my time. So they're going to keep pushing to try to make this work because they don't want to feel like they wasted their time. So in the time that you're going to continue pushing to get this thing in a hole that doesn't fit, you could have met the one who was right for you and lived your little happily ever after that you're looking for. But no, we want to continue to try to make it fit. And in the meantime, we then create resentment towards that person, resentment, towards us. And then once people don't have any respect for each other, the relationship is over. Because I can't love you if I don't respect you, and you can't love me if you don't respect me. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Wow. Aleasa, I've got like 50 more questions, but I'm like, oh my goodness. It's like time just goes so quick. Is there anything, any encouraging words, anything that you feel, look, this is a core message I have to get out to everybody?
Absolutely.
So, say it now. Let them hear your message.
The one thing when it comes to relationships is having realistic expectations. And just, I would say, play this through your mind. Look at the one habit that you have that you've not been able to overcome for years. And look how hard it's been for you to overcome that. And you know you should change it. You want to do something about it, but you just can't. It could be eating too much. It could be not eating enough. It could be drinking. It could be smoking. It could be a sexual addiction. It could be a drug addiction. Look how hard it is to do that. How dare we judge others for not changing into what we want them to be when we can't even change into what we're supposed to be? And that's the message about the realistic expectations. If I can't make myself stop being a stress eater overnight, why would you think that your man can be the CEO of a company overnight? That's not fair. And the same thing about your woman. It's just not fair. So we have to be fair and real and stop worrying about keeping up with the Joneses and what your friends have, what your friends don't have. 9 times out of your friends, out of 10, your friends have a bunch of debt wrapped in a Mercedes-Benz. That's what they have.
The grass is never greener on the other side. Don't listen to what anybody says. The grass is not greener. Wow, Aleasa, this it has been a revelation. It's enlightened me, and it's been enlightening our listeners. I know they're going to want to get hold of you, especially with the work you do with men. I'm sure a lot of mothers out there will want their sons to be in touch with you and learn some more. Is there any contact information right now that you can give our listeners so they can get a hold of you and learn more about your programs and possibly get involved in the work you do?
Absolutely. They can give me a call at my Atlanta office at area code 678-883-8243, or they can go to my website, Chapter 2 Living, CHAPPER, number 2, living.com, where you'll find everything from my company, Algae Works Consulting, as well as the Chapter 2 for Men program. And also, we're always looking for guys to share their stories and how they feel and get their own voice out there on the goodmenproject.com. If you're a writer out there and you've got some thoughts and you want to work with me, I'll help you and groom you to get your words published on the Good Men Project. I'm always looking for new people to do that. So, those are the channels. Or you can hit me up on Twitter, A-Dub for Spirit, A-D-U-B, the number 4, and then Spirit on Twitter. And then we'll connect and we'll talk about some things. And don't worry, I never try to tell a man how to be a man because I've never been one. But what I do try to help men do is figure out where they're stuck, how to get to the next level, and be the best that they can be in whatever area of life they're looking to become unstuck.
Wow. Words of wisdom indeed. And, by the way, you just got a new sign-up. So me and you need to talk about that, Aleasa, about the Good Men Project, and I'm getting involved in that. So
that's great.
So there you go. So, fantastic. Really loved having you being on the show today. Like I said, I've been trying to get you on the show for a minute now. And, at some point, definitely love to have you back to talk more about your work. And, of course, any ongoing success that you're having, we'd love to talk about it and inspire others so that they can also be part of any future success. Aleasa, it's just been great talking to you, and thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate coming on. I want to give my shout-out to everybody at Source Nation. Tracy, I love you because you do a great job getting everybody on. And, Tem Ti, thank you so much again for having me on your show, and I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing everything you've got going on the show on a weekly basis. Take care.
Great. Thanks, Aleasa. You take care. Today, fantastic show. Once again, thank you so much to the Source Nation team for getting our esteemed guest to the studio to share with you all. And again, once again, thank you so much to Coach Aleasa M. Word. Please check her out. You can check out her information on the Source Nation Facebook page and also on our website. So, to all the men listening, you learned something tonight. And to all the women, you also learned something tonight. A relationship, it really is about relating to the common fulfillment of both of your purposes. Now, before you're a part of a relationship, you're an individual. And, talking to the men, before you get into a relationship, you are simply you. You have your likes, your dislikes, your talents, your potential, and it doesn't depend on your gender at all. It really goes down to the purpose of who and what you are, your soul. Therefore, if you know your soul, if you do that work to go within and get to know yourself, not only will you establish your being, but you will also know how to make sense of your gender as a man and know and understand how to express your manhood for the single purpose of achieving your soul's objective. Once you understand the extent of your manhood, then you'll also, more importantly, understand the limitations of your manhood. Because it's in your limitations you have to pay attention. Because everything you are not is everything you can potentially be to become whole. And if you're interested in becoming whole, then as a man, you have to pay attention to women. Because they bring something to the table, and I'm not talking about anything physical. Women bring something to the table that men do not possess, that men are better off if they understand how to interact with it effectively in their lives. And I'm not just talking about a romantic relationship. Any relationship with a woman, any proper and correct relationship with a woman will create a transaction where you will be better off as a man. And that's when you know the true value of women. And to start that process, it starts with you knowing yourself and asking your why. Ask why. Don't ask, point and say what and be blaming everything else for your situation. Ask why and get to understand yourself and everything around you in your life at its most fundamental. So you can understand why you're here, why you have your purpose, why you have your skills, why you think the way you do, and then learn how to put that together so you can express it in an effective way to bring self-actualization to your life, and know who is important to your life to achieve that self-actualization and who is a waste of time. Because nothing matters. You only have nothing else matters apart from your self-actualization. All of us only have one job in life to do, and that's to be ourselves. And to be ourselves, we have to live a fulfilled life. So you have to be mindful on who you are. And, of course, it all applies to women, too. Source Nation, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. To contact me, you can reach me, myself, Life Purpose Coach Tem Ti, through my website, Red Pill Life. That's RedPillLife.com, redpilllife.com, or email me at redpillnow@redpilllife.com for any comments, questions, or ideas about the show that you want us to talk about. And don't forget, there's a lot of good work that I'm also doing with the New Approach Coaches Project. You can also go to New Approach and contact me there and check out a lot of the stuff we're doing. And remember, speaking to a coach isn't because you have an issue or a problem. Speaking to a coach is about to someone who knows how to relate to what you're going through and can give you advice about a process that they may understand better and can help you to understand it in your own way. You may not be able to get that from your friends or from your family. So by all means, reach out to Elisa. Reach out to any of the good people that you hear on Source Radio. Reach out to myself, but don't hold it in. Express, talk, and learn, because that's the only way we're all going to grow. You have been listening to Renaissance Relationship Therapy with me, Life Purpose Coach Tem Ti. Have a great week. I'll be here next Sunday. Love all. All is love. Peace.